back in the graveyard. Big thanks to everybody who's been sharing the videos, liking, commenting. I've had lots of messages and lots of people who have joined the Thorne and Moorends community family tree that I'm building on Ancestry. So for those who don't know, I'm in St Nicholas Churchyard, the Overflow Churchyard in Thorne in Doncaster, and I'm going around documenting all the graves, uncovering a lot of graves, and I'm going to be cleaning lots of them up, and then I'm putting the people that I find in those graves into Ancestry, finding their family and seeing how they connect to each other and how they connect to the living families who are still in Thorne today. So that is the mission. Today we're going to be looking at the Coleman family. Now, if you live in Thorne, you will be aware of Coleman Road and Coleman Street. These are obviously named after that family. And we're in the graveyard now. Right in the centre of the graveyard, we've got these two graves, two of the biggest graves in the graveyard. And these are connected to the Coleman family. So yeah, let's take a look. So it's a bit windy today, so apologies for that, but it can't be helped. Needed to come here and get this video out. So the first grave that we come to is this one. This is Richard Coleman of Bradholme in Thorne, and also of his wife Jane Coulman. Now Jane's maiden name was Chester. She was called Jane Chester, and this is their grave. Richard was 53 when he died in 1876, and Jane was 80 years old. She died in 1904. And you'll see, I made a little video on this before, but you'll see on top of the grave is this symbol. Now it looks kind of like a dollar sign, so when you see this you think, what is it, like some kind of symbol of being rich, something like that? But it's not. You'll see this on a lot of graves, and it's actually what they call a Christogram. So it is the first three letters of the name of Jesus in Greek. So in Greek, Jesus, his name would have been Jesus. So I-H-S-O-U-S, and that is an I, a H and an S. So it's the first three letters of the name of Jesus in Greek, and again that's what they call a Christogram. So basically they have got Jesus on their grave. That's what it is. So Richard and his wife were farmers, and they lived at Bradholme Farm, which is just off Tudworth roundabout as you come into Thorne. So if anybody's been to Thorne, there's a big roundabout that says welcome to Doncaster on it. That is Tudworth or Tudworth roundabout. And the farm is, if you turn to go down Scunny Road towards Scunthorpe, I believe the farm is just set back there. I don't know if the farm still operates, who still lives there, if it's still owned by the family, but yes, that's where it is. So if anybody knows any information, let me know. But yeah, they were farmers, and Richard was the son of William Coleman Esquire, who was also a farmer who also owned Bradholme Farm, and Richard's mum was called Amelia Tomlinson, I believe, was her maiden name. So again, it was a farming family. Now I'm just walking over to the church now. I don't know if I'll be able to get in, but there is actually a memorial inside the church that was made by the Coleman family that has all these people on. So yeah, I'm going to try and get in, but I'll drop a picture here. So the church is locked up, but from that picture, which is of the memorial inside, we can see it's got some of his sons on there. So there was Thomas, who died age 6. There was John, who died in Sydney. Who else did we have? We had Robert, who died in New Zealand. So they were getting out to Australasia, if you like, some of his children. And then you've got Richard, who is the Richard, so his name's on that, but he's the Richard whose grave that we're looking at. And then there's a William who was also mentioned, who it said died abroad. So that is in here. So we know that the Coleman family were an important family. They were farmers, but they also contributed massively to this church, to the graveyard, and yeah, to businesses, and basically all of Thorne, you know. So I've just done a little lap of the church. Parts of it are pretty overgrown, so I was actually looking for a specific stained glass window that was put here by the Coleman family, but I can't find it. It's very hard to make out the windows from outside, so hopefully at some point in the future I'm going to speak to the church and get inside and do a little video on the church as well, telling people about the church's history and things like that. So yeah, but I'll tell you a little bit more about that stained glass window shortly. Back to our guy in the grave, Richard Coleman. So the Coleman family was a big family again, all farmers, but Richard's third cousin was a lady called Elizabeth Coleman, and she married a man named Thomas Kelly. Now that name's come up before, and I've had one of the Kelly descendants message me with lots of good information. Now this Thomas Kelly was the grandson of another Thomas Kelly, who was a famous clockmaker from Thorne, and yeah, I've seen lots of these clock faces from old grandfather clocks that say made by Thomas Kelly of Thorne, which is pretty cool. My dad also used to make grandfather clock cases, so it's very, very possible that he maybe used one of his movements in a clock he made. So anyway, but yeah, so that was Thomas, that's Richard's third cousin, Elizabeth Coleman, again married Thomas Kelly, the grandson of the clockmaker Thomas Kelly. Now his grandson, so Elizabeth Coleman and Thomas Kelly, their grandson was Percy Kelly, and again we've mentioned him before. Percy Kelly married Annie Clark. She was the widow of Herbert Sutton. So we're back to the Suttons again. So everything basically leads to the Sutton family. I've had lots of people get in contact saying we're related to the Suttons. The community tree's building every day and it's getting massive. So again, get in touch if you're part of that tree and I'll add you in. Big thanks to everybody who's been contributing. I think there's about 2,000 people in there, and it's growing every single day. Now Richard Coleman's first cousin was a lady called Sarah Coleman, and she married somebody who we already know. She's also buried in this graveyard, and she's buried here because this Sarah, the wife of Charles Darley, the man who owned Darley's Brewery, is Sarah Coleman. So you can see how this family is connected to all the other families. So Sarah Coleman married Charles Darley, the brewery owner. So yeah, that's just another connection, and that's the grave that we found. That's his first cousin, Sarah. So now I'm just walking from the Darley grave, which is there, back to, this is smack bang in the middle of the graveyard. I've got another huge grave here, which I'm going to do a different video on. You can see how it's worn away. It's all been worn away, but I have found who this person is. It's like an Egyptian obelisk on top. So I'll go into that in a different video. But yeah, back to this Richard. So we know he's connected to the Suttons. His cousin married Charles Darley, and we've got his wife Jane Chester. So this grave next door is actually the grave of her parents. So you can see Elizabeth Chester, daughter of John and Elizabeth. So John and Elizabeth are Jane's parents, and this younger Elizabeth is her sister. So her sister and parents are buried in this grave. So yeah, right in the middle of the graveyard. That gives you a little bit of background on who these people were. But there's one more person who's connected to this grave who's really important to Thorne. So Richard and Jane had a son, and he was called John Chester Coleman, and he's buried somewhere in here. Now I have looked all around this graveyard. There's a lot of graves I've not seen, but I've looked for the bigger graves because I would assume it would be in a bigger grave like his family are buried in, and he was a very important man, so he probably had a larger grave, but I'm yet to locate it. So if you have any idea where it is, let me know. Yeah, and we'll keep looking for it. Hopefully I can find it. But yeah, according to the records, he is buried somewhere in this graveyard. But yeah, John Chester Coleman was an important man. So he was also a farmer, a landowner. He was on the council, the district council, which is probably why the roads are named after him. After the family as well, but I think he was the sort of pivotal person who did a lot for the town, if you like. He was the chairman of the board of governors for Thorne Grammar School, which is a school I went to, many other people went to. That is the old Thorne Grammar School building there. A lot of it's gone now, but that's the main building straight across the road. So he was, like I say, the chairman of the governors of Thorne Grammar School. And he was vice president of the Thorne Unionists Association. He was vice president of the Thorne Agricultural Society. He was also a breeder of championship Shire horses. So yeah, and his obituary, I've written a little piece here. The last line of his obituary says, "Truly a man of good standing." Yeah, he was also Justice of the Peace as well, so the Doncaster district. So he had lots of titles, an important man. And yeah, so when I was talking about a stained glass window, he actually, when he died, I got his will. He left £100, which was, he died in 1913. And he left £100 to build a stained glass window, and it's Jesus carrying a lamb. So I need to get in the church, see if it's actually still there. But yeah, he funded that, and he also left in his will £17,000, which if you work it out in today's money, it's about 2.4 million. So yeah, he was a pretty wealthy guy, which is why I've been looking for one of the bigger graves. There's some bigger graves there, but I've checked those, and yeah, he's not to be seen, unfortunately. So that is it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, a little bit more history, a little bit more background of Thorne, of the people in it, the families that made it what it was. If you know any more information about John Chester Coleman, let me know. Again, I don't know where his grave is, but these were the graves we were looking at today. Again, Richard Coleman, his wife Jane Chester, her parents just next door, and her sister. Yeah, that is what we're looking at today. So again, if you're connected to any of these families in the graveyard, get in touch and I will stick you in the public family tree. Keep sharing your videos and photos and anything that you have, any information with me. It's all appreciated. And please like this video on YouTube, subscribe, leave a comment. It all helps. It just means that more people are going to see it, and that's what we want. Because remember, the plan is to tidy this place up and just make it better, show a bit of respect for our ancestors, people who created this town, built this town, and allowed our families to live here. So that's it for today. Thank you.
A few moments later.
I'm back, just leaving the graveyard. I had to walk right into the corner. I'm right into the corner here, and we have found him. John Chester Coleman of Bradholme, died 1913. So that is his grave there. So you can see it must have been much bigger. You can see that there was something here that's kind of fell off and broken away. But yeah, that is his grave. Yeah, so all that looking, and his grave's there. There's the side entrance, and there is, if this can focus, there we go. Zoom in a little bit. There's the middle of the graveyard. So there's the graves that we're looking at. And there he is, the man himself, John Chester Coleman. What a good ending to the video. Found it just on my way out. So thanks again.